Okay, we're in Norfolk, Virginia on December the 13th, 2003 in the home of Danny Richardson. And one of the people in the long list of folks that will be involved with this history of Navy music, the oral histories that we're doing, to establish an archive so that years down the road people will be able to look back and see what it was all about that built this program and the people that were active in that program along the way. So, Danny, as I've said to almost every other person, where did you hear about this Navy thing, this Navy music program?
Well, when I graduated from high school in January of 1947, I read an ad in the newspaper for a trombone player for a working band in Marrero, Louisiana, which is about 15 miles from where I live. And I took an audition for that band called the Sullivan Swingsters, and I was accepted into the band. And we worked at this nightclub called the Moonlight Inn Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week, made $15 a man. In that band were two members of the famous Dukes of Dixieland, Frank and Freddie Assunta. And the reason they had an ad in the paper for a trombone player was because Freddie went to LSU and left the band, and that created a vacancy for a trombone player. So I filled in for about a year. And I think Freddie either flunked out of LSU or he decided to quit. But anyway, he came back to New Orleans and wanted his place again in that band. So I was out of a job. So I'm walking down Canal Street, and I walked by the custom house, and they had that old picture of the Navy Wants You. And I said to myself, I wonder if they're having a Navy program. So I went on up there and talked to a recruiter, and he said, oh, yes, we do. He says, we'll send you all the way up to Washington, D.C., free of charge. If you pass the audition up there, you have to agree right now to join the Navy as a musician. If you don't pass the audition, we'll send you back home and you forget the whole deal, didn't cost you a thing. And I also, during that year, I joined the Marine Reserve. And I was in the 10th Infantry Headquarters Band during 1947. So I was already in a military band when I was playing with the Sullivan Swingsters. I was accepted into the Navy music program by taking that audition and was sent to Great Lakes. And I was in the Drum and Bugle Corps at boot camp at Great Lakes.
Yeah, a lot of us were.
Boot camp was a breeze.
Yep.
Got out of a lot of things, you know.
Yep.
So I went on home on, when that was completed, went on home on vacation, or your leave, what they call in the Navy.
Yeah, boot leave.
So I went home on boot leave, and guess what? I got married right out of boot camp. Seaman Deuce musician Richardson gets married at age 18 to a 16-year-old girl that he met at the Moonlight Inn when he was playing with the Sullivan Swingsters. So here I am now, getting ready to go to school with a wife.
Saddled.
Saddled down from the get-go, man. So we found us a little apartment not too far from the school, somewhere there in the southeast. She worked at a five and dime store. And so I didn't really have the benefit of most of the students getting in a lot of practice. I just barely made what I had to do to practice. But I successfully completed the course, and trying to think of this real great guy, a trombone player who was the warm-up instructor for trombones. Scotty Lenore.
Yeah.
That's what his name.
Sure.
From
Lenore,
guy.
North Carolina.
Yes, sir. He was a great guy, taught me a lot, but he was not my instructor. My trombone instructor at the school was I think, a fella by the name of Schultz.
Baritone
Baritone
in the
name.
Salvation Army.
He definitely let me know that he was in the Salvation Army. And I didn't really pick up too much from Schultz, but he was a good instructor. But I wish I could have had Scotty Lenore. He was my idol back then. But anyway, I did graduate, and I was sent to Corpus Christi, Texas, along with 6 other guys. And this was a small band, a 15 or 17 piece band. So evidently something had happened in Corpus Christi where half of the band was gone, because they needed 6 players, including Reed's trumpet and the trombone and the bass player. Myers, who later on went to the academy, was in that group of the 6 people that I went down there with. And Chief Van Sickle was the band leader. What a nice guy he was.
Great person.
Terrific guy. But I might say this, that when I joined the Navy, I knew I was going to spend 20 years in the Navy. I mean, where else can you do what you like doing and get paid for it, you know? And music was my life. So I knew right from the get-go I was staying for 20 years, and I knew that I wanted to make leader as fast as I possibly could, having come into the Navy with a wife. So I kept a little notebook about Chief Van Sickle, his leadership abilities, and what a kind of a person he was. And so 50-50 he came out, 50 bad and 50 good. He wasn't much of a leader, but he was a heck of a trombonist. He was the nicest guy I've ever met in my life. He was always up, always had a joke, and he called everybody Cat. So I became Dan Cat Richardson. So everybody in that band,
it stuck with you.
Cat. But a couple of things historically, I guess, happened in Corpus Christi, and one was a race thing. We had a black clarinet player in the band, and we could not take him on any parades in downtown Corpus Christi, Texas. As a matter of fact, he couldn't play in public at all with us off of the bass. If it was a gig on the bass, okay, but Jim Crow was alive in Corpus Christi, Texas in the 50s.
Very tenuous time.
And that was just despicable. But anyway, I think it was in 1948 when Truman declared that there would be equal opportunity for all in the military. But it didn't get far south.
Now this deal about the black guy, the African American guy that was in the Corpus band, there had been, by that time, by 48, there had been a lot of black bands that came out of Great Lakes and had been put on stations, but I found out that they had to contact the station to see if they would accept a black band.
Isn't that something?
And maybe this was a place that they accepted one person at least anyway. But this will get cleared up along the way, because Corpus was one of the places that was listed in another piece of literature that I have as being a place that they sent a black band to. And that's not cleared up yet. So
oh, I see.
That might have been before. That might have been the band that was there, and the band left, and Van came, and they were building this band. I don't know this yet, but we'll find that out.
Now, there was some controversy about this black clarinet player. He was not one of the original 6 that went down with us. He just showed up at the band one day and said he recently graduated from the School of Music. And Van Sickle didn't do much investigation on that. And he just accepted the guy into the band. And he rehearsed with us. He stayed in the band barracks. And like I say, he couldn't go on the gigs with us off the bass, but he was a member of the Corpus Christi band. Then all of a sudden, I guess Van got suspicious of the guy because he didn't really play that well. He played a bad third clarinet, as a matter of fact. So Van started doing some investigation. Come to find out, the guy was a cook on the Corpus Christi air station, and he had left his duty station and just dropped over to the band, and he was actually absent without leave.
No kidding.
And I think he was disciplined from that.
Isn't that
But
interesting?
it was interesting to note that he was in that band, and we couldn't use him outside the base. Not only that, we had to leave one white guy back when we went to the gig, and it was a small band to begin with, so
that
it really hurt us.
everything would be equal.
Everything would be equal.
Yeah.
In
Now, how'd this guy work with? He didn't have a bug on his arm, right?
No, he didn't.
He was just a seaman. Now, we had a number of people that came into the music branch from stewards. In fact, Jimmy Howard came in from the stewards branch.
In Texas, I studied very hard because I wanted to make every rate that I could the first time up, which I did. And I was transferred from Corpus Christi in 1951, and along with a fellow by the name of, we called him Slag. His name was Lyle Kirk. He was a great tenor player, and he was one of the original 6 that went to Corpus with me. And both of us got on a troop ship, the USS Rose, out of New York, heading for London, England. And when we got to London, it had been maybe 2 or 3 months before we were actually transferred until we arrived in London. And Van Sickle had written me several letters, because we were close. I had a baby by then, and he would visit the house when we were in Corpus Christi, so we got to know each other real well. So he wrote about 3 or 4 letters to me before I got there. So Chief Birdsong was the bandmaster in London, and the mailbox was right on his desk in the incoming box. So all of the members of that band would come in there every day and search through that box for their mail, and they would see this letter addressed to Dan Cat Richardson. And they were all just waiting for this cat to show up. And I don't know, those years was the bebop years, and I'm so far from bebop, it's hysterical. So they probably expected some real jazzy bebop trombone player. And who is this cat coming over here? We're going to fix that cat. And especially after learning the personality of Birdsong, I know he was just waiting. So that's how I got named Cat Dan.